This magic moment, so different and so new, was like any other until I kiss you, and then it happened. It took me by surprise. I knew that you felt it too.
Hi, good evening and a Merry Christmas Eve to you. So happy that you joined me tonight. And by the way, I realize that is not a traditional Christmas song you were just listening to. But as you will see in a few minutes, it does have something to do with Christmas, especially those words, this magic moment. Because the truth is, every day of our lives, God gives us hundreds and hundreds of moments, doesn't He? And that is especially true at Christmas time. Moments to laugh and to love and hopefully to ponder the meaning of Christmas, to rejoice, to celebrate, to worship, to be amazed, and of course to be thankful. Beautiful moments, magic moments, if you will. But here's the problem as I see it. It is that so often we miss our moments, you know? I'm talking that moment in time, that one that you can never get back, that one that you may think about for a very long time and wonder, hey, what if? Are you tracking with me? Let me tell you a story, funny story. A young soldier and his commanding officer got on a train together. This was years ago. And the only available seats were across from an attractive young woman who was traveling with her grandmother. So as they engaged in conversation, the soldier and the young woman were obviously attracted to one another. They kept eyeing one another, and the attraction was mutual. Well, suddenly the train went through a tunnel, and the car became pitch black. Immediately, sounds were heard, two of them. The smack of a kiss and the whack of a slap across someone's face. Well, immediately the grandmother thought, hey, I can't believe he kissed my granddaughter, but I'm glad she gave him the slap he deserved. While the commanding officer thought to himself, I don't blame the boy for kissing the girl, but it's a shame that she missed his face and hit me instead. The young girl thought, I'm so glad he kissed me, but I wish my grandmother had not slapped him for doing it. And as the train broke into the sunlight, the soldier could not wipe the smile off his face. He had just seized the moment. He had just seized the opportunity to kiss a pretty girl and to slap his commanding officer. And he got away with both of them. Now, there was a young man who knew how to capture a magic moment, wouldn't you say? All right, for a few minutes this Christmas Eve, I want you to think with me about the magic moments of Christmas, and specifically what to do with those moments when God gives them to us. Okay, so first of all, I want us to emphasize that we should always live in our moment. I have a friend who greets everyone loudly when he walks into a room. Do you know anyone like that? And this fellow's obvious when he walks into a room. And it's always something like, what a great day. Doesn't get any better than this. Every time he walks into a room, only much louder than I just did it. And when you're around him the first time, you just think, man, this guy is obnoxious. But once you get to know him, you realize this fellow is just really enjoying every single thing about every single moment of his day. Do you know someone like that? Or perhaps you are that way. Well, here's the deal. Every moment that we are alive is a gift from our gracious God. Even this moment we're having together right now. For instance, Christmas. Tomorrow, the emphasis for many families will be on gifts and presents, especially for the children and the small children. And so it becomes a moment for them. Would you agree with that? And often, it's a moment they remember all of their lives. I can testify to that. I remember when I was 13 years old, I wanted a .410 shotgun really bad. And I ran to the Christmas tree that morning and it wasn't there. However, there was one big box for me and another big box for my younger brother. So I pretty much figured, okay, we're both getting a shotgun this year. Well, my brother opened his up and it was not a shotgun. It was actually a one-man pup tent we camped out in our backyard all the time with some of the neighborhood guys, and so my dad just got him a pup tent, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't even like camping. I sure don't want a tent. So I opened mine kind of begrudgingly, and sure enough, there was no shotgun there, but there was no tent. Inside that big box was a box. And I pulled that box out and opened it up, and then guess what? There was another box. And I did it again. Did you ever do that, the big box to the little box thing? Well, I finally got through all the boxes, and the very last one was a small box. And I was very upset at that point because I knew there was no way it was a shotgun. But when I opened it, there was a shotgun shell in that little box. And I looked around, and there was my dad standing behind me holding my new shotgun. Now, for me, that was a magic moment. And it was a magic moment that obviously I still remember today with great joy in my heart. Now, I want you to think about your moments. Think about the one God gives us called today, for instance. God presents today to you. Here it is, He says. We can open it up and we can go, oh, nothing here. Just another box, right? Just another day. And all the while God is saying, oh, no, come on, keep going. I've given you this special gift. Keep unwrapping it. There's a moment in here for you. There's a special gift for you from me. Don't stop. You'll find it. But too often we do just that. We stop. Maybe because we're looking ahead to tomorrow, hoping that will be our moment. Or we look at someone else's moment and wish their moment was our moment. Do you know what I mean? Or this. Think about this. Do you remember Whoville in the Grinch story? Well, too many people today live in Whenville. In other words, they live with a mindset that they will be really happy and really enjoy life when they go on vacation, when the kids get older, when they get more successful at work, when they get married or whatever. Listen, don't forget this. Oftentimes the journey is the destination, or the destination, rather, is the journey. It's about the here and now. This moment. A moment that is just as filled with potential and opportunity as any other moment we can look forward to. So we learn to slow down, right? We learn to breathe, to immerse ourselves in the now, not in the when. I hope that makes sense. Look at Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 6. This is from a paraphrase edition, but watch this. He says in Matthew 6, give your entire attention to what God is doing. When? Look at these next words. Right now. Give your attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get all worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes. But you see, what happens for some of us is we do just the opposite of Jesus' words here. Too often we take some of our present emotional energy and strength and we use it to worry about tomorrow, about what might happen. And then we use some more of that emotional strength on yesterday, lamenting what already happened. And the result is we have very little left in our tank to get us through today. Listen, don't do that. Call on the power and the energy of the Holy Spirit who lives in you, the one who promises to provide every need of your life, and allow Him to help you and teach you how to live in your moment, how to truly live today. Because here's what I promise. If you do that, He will. Like Jeremiah said, call unto me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things that you don't even realize. So, live in your moment. Secondly, tonight, rejoice in your moment. And if you have trouble with that or wonder, how do I rejoice in a moment? Take a lesson from your dog. Cats, not so much, but dogs really get this rejoicing thing. We have a cat and a dog, and our cat has a couple of toys that she likes to play with sometimes when she's good and ready, right? If you have a cat, you know what I mean. Most times she'll walk by and it's like when you look at her, it's like she's looking at that thing saying, oh, that yarn ball, cute. Or, oh, that fuzzy thing hanging from the string. Whatever. I mean, that's just a cat, right? Ah, but to a dog, everything is a moment to celebrate. You throw your dog a ball and he's going, oh boy, it's a ball, it's a ball. You take your dog outside like we will take our Roxy outside. The first thing she does is pick up a stick. Oh boy, it's a stick, oh boy. Or she sees a lizard. Oh boy, it's a lizard. Or a butterfly. I mean, she knows how to rejoice over her moments. We ought to take that to heart. We ought to learn to rejoice like our dogs, like our pets. Okay, think back to that first Christmas found in Luke chapter 1. You remember that the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary and told her she was highly favored, she was chosen of God to bring the Messiah into the world. And obviously that confused Mary. For one thing, she couldn't understand why she had been chosen, why she was special that she would be chosen. And besides that, she had never been with a man. Nevertheless, she accepted her calling and she chose to celebrate in her moment. And watch this. Watch Mary's response to everything. Luke 1, chapter 1, verse 46. I am bursting with good news. My soul magnifies the Lord. I am singing and I am dancing the song of my Savior God. God took one look at me and look what happened. I am the most fortunate woman on earth. Do you get that? My soul magnifies the Lord. I just have to sing. I just have to dance. Isn't that a great response? Isn't that a joyful response to a moment? I remember several years ago, I was late one morning for my TV taping before our service began at a former church. And I remember driving to church and I was mumbling to myself, saying things sort of out loud and sort of under my breath at the old van that was in front of me filled with people driving way too slow. And I couldn't get around it because of the traffic. And so I was a little bit perturbed. Finally, though, I got my opportunity and I pulled around, and when I got alongside that van, I realized it was our youth pastor at our church with all of his 8 or 10 or 15 or however many kids he had. I'm telling you, this family, they had a lot of kids. They were a great family. But get this, all of him and all these kids, they were all singing at the top of their lungs. And not just singing, but they were laughing and dancing in their 15 little car seats. And Dad was up there driving and leading them like a choir director. I'm telling you, it was beautiful. And I was just so moved by that, capturing that moment. Don't you love kids and adults that have that in their heart? And don't you suppose it pleases the Father when He sees and hears us celebrating simply because the joy of the Lord is in our hearts? I believe it with all that's in me. So listen, like Mary, the mother of Jesus, don't hesitate to rejoice and even sing and dance over those precious and God-given moments in your life. Okay, so live in your moment, rejoice over your moments, and lastly, realize your moments. In other words, realize when you're having a moment. And by the way, are you good at that? Are you good at recognizing and savoring those special moment times in your life? Because many are not. Like, have you ever had an experience where you just knew, man, this moment may never come again. I have to take advantage of this. I have to capture this moment. When my first child was born, we were in the hospital most of the afternoon and late into that evening, just prior to midnight when he was born. And so about 4 o'clock in the morning, my parents were with me. My parents left the hospital and went back to our apartment there where we were going to college. And we were so wired up we couldn't sleep. And so we just all three laid across our bed and just talked and dreamed about my new son, their new grandson's future. And I remember something my mother said at one point of that conversation that really was a life changer for me. She said, Mikey, this will be something that you will cherish and never forget as long as you live. And she was right. If you've ever had a child, you know she was right. And not only was she right, I know she believed that. Because on my birthday, every year of my life until she passed, she would call me and say, "Oh, Mikey, I remember that day you were born like it was yesterday." And then she would recount the entire experience and who all was there, all the grandparents and aunts and uncles and her brother and sisters and all that. Every year on my birthday. I was nearly 50 years old when she died. But even then, can I tell you that I still cherished my time with her on my birthday? For me, those were magic moments that I've never gotten over to this day. Incidentally, do you remember last week we made a commitment to be someone's miracle this Christmas season? We even prayed about that last week, that God would use us to be someone's Christmas miracle. Let me give you an example of how that might work for you this next week or so. A couple of Decembers ago, a young man named Kevin was preparing my sandwich at a local Subway restaurant. And so I just started talking. I was the only customer in there that evening. And so I asked him about his family, and he told me how long he'd been married and about his wife. And he mentioned that he had 2 boys. And then he really talked a lot about those 2 boys. You could tell he was a good dad, that he really loved those boys. And they were very small. Well, as he was finishing up my sandwich, they had a tip jar down at the end there by the cash register. And all it had was like a couple of $1 bills and a little bit of change. So I had extra money at the time, and so I gave him a very large tip that night. In fact, it caught him by surprise. And he looked up and said, and he got teary-eyed. He said, "Thank you so much. You don't know how much this is going to help me." And I said, "That's no problem, Kevin." I said, "I'm happy to be able to do it." I said, God has blessed me. Now I just want to bless you. And so I'm praying that you have a Merry Christmas, Kevin, and that you just keep on loving those boys like you do, and keep loving them while you still have them. I said, because I can tell you from experience, one day you'll blink, and those boys will be grown up and gone. And then guess what I did? I went to my car and put my hands to my face and just cried like a baby as I thought about how it seemed like just yesterday that my now grown children were small enough for me to hold in my arms. How many parents here know what I mean? By the way, those of you who know me, you will hear me use the word wowzer a lot. I said, wowzer, when something good happens. Well, before I used the word wowzer, my go-to phrase was, "Oh, man." And I want to tell you where that started. It started watching my sons as little boys play ball when they first started playing baseball. And every time they would do something cool or great, I would always say, "Oh, man." And I didn't realize how much I used that phrase until I watched some old videos of their ball games recently and heard myself saying that over and over and over. But here's the deal. Sometimes I sense that God says to me, "Michael, guess what? You used to wake up in the morning and look around at all your blessings and say, 'Oh, man.' You used to look at the sunrises and the sunsets that I painted and you just go, 'Oh, man.' You used to look at little fingers and perfect little toes of newborn babies and their little eyelashes, and you used to marvel and just go, 'Oh, man.' And you used to love to watch a life just be transformed as someone discovered Jesus for the first time, and you would say, 'Oh, man.' Sometimes I sense that God has been saying to me, 'Michael, you don't oh, man enough anymore. You're busy doing life, but you're missing a lot of moments.'" Can you relate to that at all? Think with me. Mary was just a kid, really, maybe only 14 or 15 when she was chosen by God to carry and deliver the Savior of the world. And do you remember from last week how she responded after she gave birth? While all the excitement was going on and the guests were arriving, do you remember how she responded? In Luke chapter 2, it says, "But Mary treasured up all these things about Jesus, about the birth, about what happened to her. Mary treasured up all these things and just pondered them in her heart." After all that had gone on, From the unexpected angel visit to the unexpected pregnancy to the unexpected delivery room filled with unexpected guests, Mary just recognized the moment. And she soaked it up. And I'm thinking she just kind of went, oh man, maybe in Hebrew, right? One more reminder before I close. Of all your moments to experience, to savor, to rejoice over, listen, don't neglect those God moments. Those moments when you just feel the presence of God, right? Those moments that you just know in your knower that God is with you, that God is there, and that God will always be there. You may be familiar with the name Chuck Colson. Among other things, he was the founder of Prison Fellowship and the Project Angel Tree, where people buy gifts for an incarcerated parent to give to the child that would not normally get a gift because of their mom and dad being in prison, or mom or dad. So Chuck was out. He tells a story about delivering some gifts to an inner city family in Washington, D.C. one day. He said he got to this rundown apartment building in the projects, and he went into one place where the screen door was hanging by a hinge and the heat radiator was full blast, and there were like 4 or 5 kids running around while their mom was away working. So he walked into the house with all these gifts, and the little boy of the bunch just went crazy when he saw those presents. You could imagine. And he was running around the apartment and running around the apartment. And finally he stopped, ran over to Colson and jumped up in his arms and gave him a big hug. And then the boy kind of leaned back and asked him, "What's your name?" And Chuck responded, "My name is Chuck. What's your name?" And the little boy said, "Well, my name is Emmanuel." "Wow," Chuck responded, "do you know what your name means?" And the little boy said, "No." So Chuck got down on one knee, got his Bible out of his back pocket, and he showed the little boy Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, that says, "You will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. Chuck said to that little boy, "Emmanuel, that's your name too. Your name means God is with us." Well, about that time, the mom comes home, and the little boy just runs to her. He's screaming, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy, guess what? God is with us. God is with us." And Colson said when he left that apartment and started walking down that cold, snowy street, he could hear that little boy's phrase just ringing in his ear. God is with us. God is with us. He said, in that moment, now there's our word, at that moment, I knew that truth, God is with us, was indeed the hope of the world. And you know what? He was right, because it is, isn't it? For us and for every person we meet during this Christmas season. So listen, take advantage of your moments these next days, especially your God moments. Live them to their fullest. Savor them. Maybe even sing over them. And when you do, you might be so amazed as you sound off with your own version of, "Oh, man." Listen, I'm so grateful for you and our New Day Church family, and also for you, our online New Day Church family. Thank you so much for watching each week, and thank you for your financial support and your words of blessing and encouragement to me and to our church family. It means so much. And now, let me close by just speaking a simple blessing over you before we end. Could I do that? Here's the blessing I want to speak over you. May the good news of great joy that Jesus brought into this world and the peace on earth, goodwill to all that Jesus left for us in this world belong to you and yours this day and every day until we meet again. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. See you soon. Goodbye.